The slave markets of Rhoxan Prime were notorious throughout the galaxy, a place where the most vulnerable were bought and sold like cattle, their cries for mercy lost in the noise of wealth and greed. For Zara, a young alien woman from the planet Ithar-7, Rhoxan Prime had been her prison for years. She had been captured during a raid on her village, her people slaughtered, and she sold into servitude to the highest bidder. Zara had been born with a gift, her ability to manipulate light and energy. The Itharans were a peaceful people, and their powers were a source of harmony and balance in their world. But to the slavers of Rhoxan, Zara's gift was nothing more than a commodity, something to exploit for profit. She had been bound and forced to serve her masters for years, never knowing a moment of peace. She had long given up hope of escape, her spirit broken by the brutal reality of her existence. Every day, she was reminded that she was nothing more than a tool for someone else's gain. But everything changed the day he came. Archer Quinn was a rogue human mercenary, known for his ruthless efficiency and sharp instincts. He was a man of few words, someone who had seen too much of the galaxy's darker sides to be easily moved by the plight of others. But when his ship, the Eclipse, was hired for a mission on Rhoxan Prime, something inside him stirred when he heard about the slave markets. He wasn't a man who believed in causes, but something about Zara's story spoke to him. She was different from the others. Her powers, her beauty, and the sheer sadness in her eyes. He had heard that slaves like her were sold for high prices, and something inside him clicked. He would free her, not out of some sense of altruism, but because it was the right thing to do. Zara had been assigned to work in the upper levels of a slaver's mansion, performing menial tasks for the elite. The rich slavers who owned her used her energy manipulation to light their grand hallways and fuel their private spacecraft. She was a living power source, kept just alive enough to serve but not allowed the dignity of freedom. One day, as she worked in the mansion, dusting the chandeliers in one of the grandest rooms, the door opened. The heavy boots of the slavers' enforcers echoed through the hall, followed by the sound of a low voice that seemed oddly familiar. "You've got her?" The voice was rough but calm. "Of course," came the reply. "She's one of the best. You know her kind." Zara's heart beat faster as she heard the conversation unfold. Was someone else bidding for her? Another buyer? Her life had been defined by the whims of others, and the thought of being passed into another's hands filled her with dread. But then, something unexpected happened. The door opened again, and she found herself face to face with him. Archer Quinn. Without hesitation, he crossed the room, his hand brushing her cheek gently. "It's time," he said simply. Zara blinked in confusion. Was she imagining this? Was this yet another trick, another cruel joke? Before she could respond, Archer pulled a device from his belt, activating a low-frequency pulse that disabled the mansion's security systems, disabling the energy shields that kept the slaves under control. The room dimmed as the lights flickered and went out, and the guards froze. "I'm taking her," Archer said, his voice firm and unyielding. The slavers didn't have time to react. Archer's swift, calculated movements took down the guards, one by one, and within moments, the room was cleared. He grabbed Zara's hand, leading her out of the mansion before she even had time to understand what was happening. As they escaped into the night, the city around them was chaotic. The slaves, witnessing the sudden surge of freedom, began to stir, but Archer's focus was entirely on Zara. What is happening?" Zara whispered, still in shock, as she held on to him, not knowing whether to trust the man who had risked everything for her. "Don't worry," Archer said, his voice softening slightly as they made their way to the back alleys. "You're free. I'm here to take you out of this nightmare." Zara's eyes searched his face for any signs of deceit, but found none. This was no trick, no cruel ploy to bring her back into the hands of the slavers. She had been rescued, For the first time in years, she felt a spark of something she had long since forgotten: hope. Over the next few days, Archer kept his promise. He made sure Zara was safe, hiding in the shadows of the city while his ship was prepped for takeoff. He had no real plan for what came next. All he knew was that he had saved her because it was the right thing to do. But as they boarded the Eclipse, Zara found herself torn. She had been taught that humans were the enemy, that they were selfish and unpredictable. But Archer, this human, had done something that no one in her world ever had. He had given her the gift of freedom. "Why did you do it?" she asked him one evening as they sat on the ship's deck, the stars shimmering outside the window. "You didn't know me. You didn't have to save me." Archer's eyes softened, and for a moment, she saw the man behind the mercenary. "Sometimes you don't need a reason," he said. "Sometimes it's just the right thing to do." Zara began to learn about the world beyond her captivity. She discovered that Archer had no grand agenda. He wasn't trying to start a rebellion or change the galaxy. He was a man who lived by his own rules, driven by a sense of fairness that went beyond race, species, or politics. As they traveled together through the stars, Zara's fear of humans began to dissipate. She saw Archer for who he truly was, not a monster, but a man with his own scars, his own past. He had helped her escape from the darkness, and in doing so, he had changed the course of her life forever. In the vast expanse of space, she no longer feared the unknown. With Archer by her side, she realized that she could chart a new path, one of freedom, of discovery, and of new beginnings.